John's mother was upset and said, "Stop being so arrogant over just $10. The only reason you have this lifestyle is because of my son. Dan, it's time to stop taking care of a wife who isn't worth it. I'm tired of Emily's arrogance and complaints. You could find someone younger and prettier to be with." John didn't seem bothered by her words. Instead, he smiled and replied calmly, "If that's how you feel, then you're free to leave this house whenever you want." Feeling completely unwelcome, I went to the bathroom and cried alone. But the next day, I learned something shocking about John from my boss. That moment made me determined to get a divorce. I started preparing for it little by little. I met John during my last year of college when he joined the club I was part of. He was raised in a spoiled environment, had a high opinion of himself, and was confident. His bright personality made him popular, but we didn't talk much back then. After I graduated, life got busy with job hunting. A couple of years into my career, I ran into John again. He was interviewing for a job at my company. "Emily, do you remember me? We were in the same club at university," he said enthusiastically. John seemed eager to join my company and often reached out to me for advice. We began meeting one-on-one, and soon we started dating. He got the job and quickly became well-liked at work. After about a year, he proposed to me, and I accepted, even though I had concerns about his mother. When I met his mother for the first time, she was cold and distant. She asked bluntly, "Emily, is it true you're 3 years older than John?" I replied calmly, "Yes, that's true. We met through a university club, where I was his senior." She frowned slightly and said, "I'd like you to leave that senior-junior dynamic behind. In this household, John's position is above yours." From that moment, I could tell she wasn't thrilled about our relationship, even though she didn't openly oppose it. After marriage, every visit to John's parents' house was stressful. His mother always criticized me, saying things like, "You're still working after getting married." I would politely respond, "Yes, I can balance work and home because John is supportive." But despite my efforts, her attitude never softened. When I told John's mother that we both worked and split the household chores, she wasn't happy. "Supportive? Don't tell me you're making John do chores," she pressed. I explained calmly, "We both work, so we share the responsibilities." But she wasn't satisfied. "Even if you both work, John is in sole only of the most important roles in a company. You're just an office worker, doing auxiliary tasks. John's position is clearly more important." I looked at John for support, but he seemed pleased to be called the company's hopeful star. That hurt me deeply. I decided to rely on my own strength instead of counting on him. The visits to my mother-in-law's house became more difficult as her harsh comments continued. At the same time, John got busier with work, often working late nights and weekends. This created more distance between us. One day, while alone at home, I received a letter with an unfamiliar sender. Feeling uneasy, I opened it and discovered it was a debt collection notice. My heart sank. When John came home that night, I confronted him. "Dan, what's this? Are you in debt? Explain this to me." Looking tired, he tried brushing me off. "I'm exhausted. Can we talk about this later?" But I held up the overdue notice and said firmly, "No, we're talking now." John's face turned pale. "It's for entertaining clients," he said, stumbling over his words. It was a last-minute expense. I didn't have cash on hand or my credit card with me that day, so I borrowed the money. The amount was shocking, $10,000. His excuses didn't convince me. Why such a large amount, and why didn't you tell me? John tried to justify it, saying it was more efficient to borrow a large sum and that the company would reimburse him. "Until then, can I borrow from your savings?" he asked, looking desperate. I was furious. Why should I use my personal savings? That's for the mortgage. Reluctantly, I transferred $10,000 from my account to avoid higher interest fees. John showed some remorse, cutting back on work-related client entertainment and spending more time at home. Later, John suggested we visit his mother, as it had been a while. Feeling guilty, I agreed. She was thrilled to see her son but remained as cold as ever toward me. Despite my mother-in-law's cold demeanor, I decided not to let it bother me. Instead of worrying needlessly, I said, "I'll go make some tea. Please take your time and chat with John." While preparing tea in the kitchen, I couldn't help but overhear their loud conversation. "Dan, is your married life going smoothly?" my mother-in-law asked with a concerned tone. "I hope Emily isn't bossing you around too much." Without hesitation, John replied confidently, "Not at all. Emily does all the housework and handles the finances exactly as I say. She even offered her savings to me without hesitation." I frowned, shocked by his words. Was he referring to the recent debt repayment incident? He continued, his voice brimming with pride, "Ma'am, if there's anything you want, just let me know. Emily has saved up quite a bit, so she can't afford to buy you something nice. Honestly, it's thanks to me that a woman her age even got married, so expecting at least that much from her is reasonable, right?" Their loud laughter echoed through the house. I couldn't stay silent anymore. "Please don't say such things," I said firmly, stepping into the room. Their laughter stopped, and they looked at me in surprise. That savings is money I've been carefully saving since before our marriage. I didn't give it to John as a gift. It was a temporary loan, until his expenses were reimbursed. John dismissed my words lightly. "So what? Once it's reimbursed, you can still use it to buy Mom a gift. You're her daughter-in-law. After all, isn't that the least you can do?" My mother-in-law chimed in, her voice sharp. "Exactly. John is a kind-hearted son, and you're acting so stingy. How could you refuse to give a small gift to your family? What kind of daughter-in-law are you?" Trying to control my frustration, I clarified, "I'm happy to give small gifts, but the amount I lent to John was $10. A substantial sum. That's not something to take lightly." But she waved off my concerns. "Don't act so high and mighty over a mere $10. You're making a living thanks to my son. After all." Her words stung, and I turned to John for support, but instead, he laughed. "You know, man, maybe I should have married a cute, younger girl. Emily complains too much." Still laughing, he turned to me and said mockingly, "If that's how you feel, you're free to leave anytime. I don't need you anymore." His words hit me like a blow. Realizing I had no allies in this house, I retreated to the bedroom without responding. Tears streamed down my face as I sat there alone, overwhelmed by the situation. Meanwhile, John and his mother continued to laugh and chat in the living room, enjoying the tea I had made for them, completely oblivious to my anguish. The next day, I went to work feeling really down. My boss noticed right away and asked, "Emily, is something wrong? You look like you're going through a tough time." I tried to brush it off. "It's just some family problems," I said. "Things have been a bit rough at home." My boss looked at me kindly. "If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." Feeling overwhelmed, I decided to open up and told him everything about John's debts, the cruel words he said, and how his mother treated me. My boss listened quietly, thinking carefully before responding. "That's a difficult situation," he said, "but there's something I need to tell you about John." "What is it?" I asked, confused. What he said left me stunned. He revealed that John had a terrible reputation at work. Hearing this, I finally felt ready to move on from my marriage. A week later, I was at home on some paid leave when my mother-in-law suddenly arrived with her luggage. She spoke to me in a calm firm tone. "Oh, Emily, you're still here. I'm planning to take care of John now, so could you please leave this house?" I stared at her, shocked. "Are you saying you're moving in?" "Yes," she replied confidently, "just until our new house is ready. Since you and John are separating, he'll move back to our family home. We've already started renovating it." "Renovating?" I asked, baffled. "Yes," she said with a smug smile. "We're making it comfortable for me and John to live in. Once we're no longer supporting you, we can't afford it with John's salary alone." "Are you sure John's salary is enough for that?" I asked, trying not to laugh. "Of course," she said. "John is doing great in his sales job. Unlike you in your little administrative role, you've been such a burden." At that moment, I couldn't hold back and burst into laughter. What's so funny? She asked, confused. Still smiling, I said, actually, John is about to be fired from his job. Her face went pale. What do you mean? I explained. The $10,000 John took from me. He claimed it as a company expense, but it was really for his personal use. His company found out, and now he's facing consequences. It's almost certain he'll be fired. My mother-in-law's face turned even paler as the truth sunk in. You can't be serious, she whispered. Oh, I'm very serious, I said, finally feeling a sense of justice. John's mother confronted me about the situation. Emily, you work at the same company as John. Why don't you try to help him now? As his wife, you should be supporting him. Please go talk to the president and ask them to reconsider firing him. I couldn't hide my shock and disgust. You're asking me to help him. Just a moment ago, you were telling me to leave John and get out of the house. Do you really think you can say this now? She stammered. I only said that to make you understand your place better. I didn't mean it seriously. Oh, is that so? I replied coldly. Well, I'm serious about divorcing John. She looked outraged. So you're just going to abandon him because he lost his job? You're a terrible wife. Do you even have a heart? I couldn't believe her audacity. The one without a heart here is John. He betrayed his family and cheated on me. I've heard from his colleagues that he's been seen going on dates with another woman multiple times, causing problems at work. And those fraudulent expenses, they were for those dates. My decision to divorce him has nothing to do with his job loss. It's because he's been betraying me for a long time. Staying married to someone like that is impossible. Her face fell, and she had no more excuses to defend John. She just sat there silently. I packed my bags and left the house that night. When I got back to my parents' house, John called me. Emily, did you really leave? He asked, sounding panicked. Yes, I did. Didn't your mother tell you? She did, he said. She said you left the house, and now she's so upset she's sick in bed. What happened? Please, just come back home. I stayed calm and replied, what are you talking about? You were the one who told me to leave. I didn't mean it, he cried. I thought you'd never actually leave me. Well, I'm not coming back, I said firmly. I have no intention of continuing this life with you anymore. Don't say that, Emily, he pleaded. Let's calm down and not get emotional. But I had already made up my mind. How long are you going to stay mad at me? John asked, sounding annoyed. It was clear he had no intention of admitting his mistakes. My frustration kept building. You're the one who needs to calm down, I snapped. I know everything. John's tone quickly changed to nervous. Everything? What do you mean by that? I know you've been cheating. And I know you spent $110,000 of borrowed money to have fun with your lover. How do you know all this? He stammered, clearly panicking. My boss told me, I said firmly. Our co-workers saw you with her. It's over. Gan, I'm starting the divorce process soon. I calmly explained my plans after the divorce. First, I want you to repay the $10,000 I already covered. On top of that, I'll be asking for alimony. Wait, he said, panicked. I'm already struggling to pay off the debt. How am I supposed to come up with that kind of money? That's for you to figure out, I said. My demands won't change. Emily, think this over, he pleaded. I'm young, attractive, and popular. You were happy to marry me. Let's forget about the divorce and move forward together as husband and wife, helping each other. I shook my head. Even though he couldn't see me, I have no expectations of help from you anymore. Why not? He asked, sounding desperate. We live comfortably because we both worked hard, but you ruined that with your debts and your lies. And let's not forget you're about to lose your job, so we won't even be co-workers anymore. Didn't you know? You're being fired, I said. It seemed John hadn't realized yet that his company was letting him go. They know about you dating other women during work hours and misusing company funds, I explained. On top of that, there are rumors that while you're sociable, you don't actually accomplish anything significant at work. Dan, who once charmed people with his friendly nature, was now being doubted when given important tests. His careless and lazy attitude became obvious after his inappropriate actions came to light. He lost the trust and support of his colleagues. To me, being with you doesn't add any value to the company or to my life, I added. The one thing John had going for him, his ability to get along with people, is gone. Now, even younger staff members looked down on him, seeing him as incompetent and unable to do his job properly. As for me, I poured myself into my work to heal from the pain of divorce. My efforts paid off. My boss noticed my dedication, and I earned high praise. And now, I hold an important position with a much better salary than before. My relationship with my boss also grew stronger. We've been spending more time together, even outside of work, and he recently confessed that he'd like to get to know me better on a personal level. Unlike John, I might actually have the chance to build a future with someone who is reliable and trustworthy. Filled with excitement for these changes and the possibilities ahead, I'm ready to step into a new and hopeful chapter of my life.